It's fully threaded radio. Unthreaded.
Hi everyone, Eric Dudas with you again with another Unthreaded edition of Fully Threaded Radio. This one is a conversation with Jason Baines of Lanfranco, well known in the industry for mission-critical bolting solutions. And they're based in Canada, but their footprint extends across the U.S. as well. And this discussion is really a follow-up to our previous episode that we released later in March when the whole tariff situation was unfolding. And it's an update, really. Jason provides a very thoughtful commentary on where things sit now. And this is just ahead of a few negotiation deadlines that are happening. Very relevant information if you buy or sell fasteners in North America right now. Plus, we also have a little fun. You'll get to hear a little bit about Jason's surprising athletic abilities. I'm sure most people don't know about this. Plus, his 3 big regrets in life. It's a very good conversation. You're going to enjoy it. Of course, Lanfranco has been a big supporter of Fully Threaded Radio for a long time, along with the title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio, Brighton Best International, Global Fasteners, and Star Stainless. Fully Threaded Radio is also sponsored by Buckeye Fasteners, BTM Manufacturing, Cressa, Eurolink Fastener Supply Service, Endries International, InSequel Software, the International Fastener Expo, Lanfranco, MW Components, Solution Industries, Volt Industrial Plastics, and Worth Industry USA. I'm recording this at the very end of July 2025, and it's sizzling hot here in semi-rural Northeast Ohio. A good day to sit in a nice cool office. Hopefully that's where you're checking this out. But wherever you are, appreciate you listening in. Reach out if you have comments. The email address, ftr@fullythreaded.com. Here's my conversation with Jason Baines of Lanfranco. Jason Baines, good to see you, man.
It's great to be seen, and for those people who don't know, I can see Eric as we're talking right now, and this is a beautiful man here today.
Yes, we were talking before we turned the recorder on. Further to my attempts to sort of put a video component into Fully Threaded, we're doing video. Don't know if I'll wind up using it, but this will certainly be an audio, and I think most people will at least first hear this, just the audio version. But I do have to say, Jason, for sitting up there, I know you're sometimes in cabins and, campgrounds and stuff you've been known to operate out of. I could see you're in an office, you're looking good, and it's great to see you.
It's great to be back with you, and yeah, I've got to up my game a bit. I finally took the plunge, and after 2 teenagers at home are making fun of me all the time, I cannot see anything. I finally went and filled my prescription for my first pair of glasses, and so now that I've got the glasses, I got to complete the look here.
Yeah, I knew there was something a little different. Yeah, you got the Clark Kent look going today.
Yeah, I went very basic, and I've been struggling to get used to these things, but it's coming around, and I'll tell you, you look even better now that I can see you in focus. So it's all good, and yeah, happy to be here. Happy to be catching up with FTR.
Yeah, it's amazing when you realize how much you were missing before you finally get your vision corrected. So all you young guys out there, if you are still resisting, you don't know what you're missing. Of course, when I first really had to concede that I had to get prescription glasses and there was just no way around it, it's a fasteners related story, but it's also a fishing related story. So I think you'll appreciate it. This is going back, 10, 12 years, and I was fishing a tournament with Joe Poplinski from Beacon Fasteners at the time, and I didn't know him all that well, and it was kind of a business fish, and he just took it on faith that I've been a lifelong fisherman. I know how to tie knots, right? It's the first event of the season, and I didn't realize that over the winter, my eyesight had deteriorated to a point I could not see the line, Jason. So he spent the day tying my jigs on for me. It was really not that great. But
as long as you didn't lose any fish from a sloppy knot, then probably a good deal.
Yeah, well, there were no knots to be had at that point. I mean, I was going to have to go home had it not been for him. He was my seeing eye fisherman. Cool. Well, okay, so here we sit, both bespectacled, and we talked last time at the end of March, and you gave a very... Well, I guess it was like a gut punch. We were all sitting here saying, oh my gosh, is this really happening? At the time, hard to believe how much the world has changed in those few short months, and we want to touch on that. But before we do get to that, I also want to say that I noticed the Tough Mudder list of contestants this year came out. I keep every year trying to get you involved. Your name's not on it again, Jason. Come on.
It's one of the great regrets in my life. I have three great regrets. One was never learning to play the piano. Two was never writing my novel, and in a close third is not doing the Tough Mudder with you. And many apologies. I love the area. I love getting out there, but it always conflicts with the Highland Games every year, and I'm still a sucker for when people want to pay me money to come up and toss hammers and logs in a field. So
yes. So a little bit of a tell here. So the good news is with those three regrets, Jason, is they can all be rectified because you're still a young, strong guy. So don't give up on those. And I know you know that. But I kind of set it up this way because I don't think a lot of people realize what a mega athlete you are or you have been. And that whole Highland game thing, it's astounding what you do. You can lay that out for us.
yeah, sure. I mean, it's become, I guess, almost like a lifestyle. Most of the guys in Highland Games, it's a lifestyle. We mostly have kids and families and full-time jobs, but for those who don't know, you have your Highland Games, and within it, the heavy events, and those are the guys who throw the Scottish hammers and toss stones, and then you've got the world famous caber toss. And I was a track and field athlete. Started very late doing Olympic style hammer throwing, and then would do indoor weight throw against the NCAA guys in the winter time, going down on a Canadian team. And track and field in Canada, not only does it not pay, you have to pay for everything. So even if you're top ranked, you're paying for everything. At that time, this predates, of course, Canada winning, Olympic gold in hammer throwing. So it was not on a lot of people's radar. I was always a good thrower, but never at the caliber to get to an Olympic Games or Pan American Championships. But I could throw, against NCAA people. And so eventually I moved out to one of the most Scottish areas in Canada, Glengarry County. And they have a big Highland Games, and they were short some throwers to come out in kind of the novice. And so they called my wife at the time and said, "Oh, doesn't your husband throw hammers?" And she said, "Well, like, he does track and field hammers." And they said, "No problem. We've got a kilt for him. We're missing people. Have him come out."
Oh, you did that?
And I ran out. That was 2007. I ran out, and you were competing in front of people. And then the high point for me was they had a farmer's walk. I won the farmer's walk, and then they gave me like a 12-pack of beer and free pizza, and I was hooked. And then started going around, got my own kilt, and been competing in it ever since. And then after a few years, they asked me, "Do you want to throw professionally?" And so on my weekends, when I'm not peddling lock nuts and safety critical bolting solutions, they pay my flights and hotels, and I go out and I throw stuff and win money and drink whiskey, and it's quite the lifestyle.
Now, by whiskey, that means Scotch, right? Not bourbon.
I don't discriminate.
A wee dram of malt, eh?
Anything that's handed to me, I'm going to enjoy. And I've been really fortunate to be able to be good enough. People keep inviting me, and been able to throw with in the same field as some of the top guys in the world. And it's been awesome. It's been an awesome ride. And through that, we did some charity fundraising during COVID, where I did a Guinness World Record for most caber tosses in an hour.
Wow.
And there's a terribly embarrassing live YouTube of that, with me with a shaved head and like the world's worst mustache, trying to get through this thing. And it's been fun. I continue to do it. Now I'm one of the old guys doing this, and the young guys are still nice to me, and I can still catch them in some events. And that's it. Most weekends are based around driving somewhere and throwing, and I don't throw as far as I did, let's say, 10 years ago, but I'm still enough to be in the mix.
So hang on. Why did you have to shave your head for this event? I don't get that. Are Scotsmen bald? I didn't.
The two things are unrelated. It was COVID. As you know, COVID was a crazy time, Eric.
A lot of people did a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah, I decided you're cutting your own hair. And I decided this would be a nice, tough look to have for this live YouTube broadcast for the local charity. So I shaved my head and left myself with a really terrible mustache and kind of a goatee. And looking back, it's like rarely do I talk about this, but you're such a driven interviewer here. You're just drawing it out of me because it's so embarrassing to see oneself with such a lack of self-awareness. Who would do such a thing? Like I could have worn a hat. I could have shaved it, everything off my face. I could have looked like a normal human being. Instead, I look like an extra from like a very low budget CBC production.
Or a Mel Gibson movie.
So yeah, that we went through all of that, and I still do the Highland Games, and now it's about organizing and teaching, and yeah, I've got some big competitions coming up, and the best part is just get in the throw with the top Scots and the top Americans in the world, and hang out with these guys and watch them drop bombs, and then try and catch them every now and then, maybe in a hammer throw or something.
All right, so no more ball busting on Jason for missing the mud, or we'd love to have him there, but now you know why, folks.
Yeah, and I'll be I need to drop some weight too. It's fine that I can throw stuff, but me running around at pushing 250 is it may not be as pretty as we think.
No way, you're not 250. Come on.
I've dropped all the way down to 240.
Holy cow, you carry it very well. You don't look that.
Well, that's because you've never seen the girdle I'm sporting under the shirts, Eric. But I'll let you in on the secret next time. But yeah, it's missed the mutter this year, but maybe next year. You keep asking, and I'll get out because it's a great thing you guys do. It's a great cause and a great group of people, and I'd love to be a part of it one day.
Yeah, that's a deal. Hey, on the subject of weird stuff you do during COVID, you and I have always gotten along pretty well. We seem to be on the same wavelength in a lot of ways. However, we went in exactly the opposite directions in that regard because you shaved it all off. That was the last time I got a haircut. So today, you want to talk about doing things and being a little bit. Think about how I feel, Jason. Every day I wake up and say, what am I doing, man?
No, you're sporting this just fine. You got the look, and you've got your Tom Selleck mustache. I'm going to take a picture of our interview and send that to my mom because growing up, I thought that a real man was someone with a big dark mustache and wearing a Hawaiian print shirt, and you're kind of fitting the bill right now. So Mrs. Baines might maybe I'll introduce you to my mom one day. You'd make her heart stop with this look you've got going.
Well, I'm sure she is a sweetheart. Okay, well, Jason, before we get any farther on that line, I'm going to say that there's one joke that I know, believe it or not, that actually involves kilts. I'll share it with you right now. It involves a lady approaching a man wearing a kilt and saying, sir, what's worn under the kilt?
I don't know the answer.
The answer, everything under the kilt's in perfect working order.
I'll use that. I'll use it this weekend.
That's a Musker joke. All right, we're going pretty far afield from fasteners, but we're going to circle back because as I mentioned at the top of this conversation, when we talked last time, late March, it was a different world. You were speculating on what's going on. Well, let's first say that you run J. Lanfranco Fastener Systems up there in Canada. Of course, you're extremely well positioned here south of the border in the U.S. too. And so you've been grappling with the tariff situation back in March. Folks, if you didn't hear it, go back and listen to Jason's conversation with me that we had. And you were reacting to the initial idea of what was going on. And of course, the booze protests were going on up there. That was what was happening. And you were extremely conciliatory. You had a very, very positive outlook on how this was all going to come down in typical gentlemanly Canadian fashion, may I add. But at that point, don't forget, Justin Trudeau was still PM, and the next step in your political future up there was really in question. Now Mark Carney's up there. It seems like he's Trudeau too, or maybe even a little worse in some ways. I don't know. You're up there. What's your take on all that?
Yeah, I think going back to March, there's a few things I was right about. But today it doesn't really matter what we're right or wrong about. We want a resolution, and a lot has changed, but a lot has remained the same. And so the election took place. At the time we were thinking it would be towards the end of April, and it ended up being April 28th. And I kind of thought, well, it's going to take a month for the government to get in, and then maybe late May, sometime in June, we could get a deal. So in broad strokes, and I think I'm a person who likes open conversation, as you well know. We both do, and I think that what helps all of us is if we can have honest conversation and debate. We don't always need to agree. So I'm probably going to say some stuff that other Canadians may not agree with, but this is my opinion and what I'm living and what my team is living. You're absolutely right. I think that Mark Carney has come in here, and of course he was the governor of the Bank of Canada and then later Bank of England. He's a Brookfield guy. He's a banker, and he has been most of his life. So when he speaks, he's of course, people are very happy that he sounds like an adult, but I think that's because we had a fairly immature prime minister for so many years. So I tend to get frustrated in that I think we're lowering our standards because we say, well, it sounds like a competent adult, and I think that we deserve more than that. And so many of the liberal policies have kind of continued that have been there previously. And I think that we were all hopeful that there would be some kind of a deal struck. That was my hope or my thought. And we were very close. All of the reports I've read into seem to indicate that when we had the G7 meeting in Alberta, that we were very close to kind of a broad stroke deal, which I think what everybody's understanding now, this is that those are the kind of deals or agreements that the Trump administration are looking for is broad strokes. Let's come to an understanding, and then we'll allow our teams behind the scenes to work out the finer details. But that seems to be the approach that's favored on the US side. And on the Canadian side, there really seems to be a desire to have a very detailed, granular agreement and almost renegotiate proactively and ahead of time the current Kuzma agreement. And so I think so what has happened, and it's unfortunate for everyone on the ground, okay? Doesn't matter what political stripe you are of. I think both countries want to have a resolution, right? And so right now there's a difference of philosophy from what I can see in how this wants to be, how they want to negotiate this. My feeling personally is, you need, if you're Canada or any country with the US, you're not going to get probably as an equitable deal in your opinion. But I'm of the mind that you get a deal you can live with for 3 years, 4 years, and then you've got to take care of business in your own house. There's a ton of things we can do in Canada here to help ourselves. And I tell people, and so to summarize it, yeah, we're kind of still in the same holding pattern. I think there's deals to be had. This is going to test the resolve of this new government, and it's really going to, I think, put a large strain on the Canadian people because there's a big portion of the country who says we have supply management, which is a quota system for dairy, eggs, poultry. And, if you believe in supply management, you figure it's entrenched and shouldn't be touched. And that's something that the Americans want to look at. I'm not a dairy farmer. Okay, it's 1% of our GDP. I'm saying let's open it up, but that would be very unpopular if you go to the province of Quebec and whatnot. So,
well, how does that work, Jason? Explain what that even is.
So what it is, the premise of this, depending on who you speak to, and dairy is a hot. You'd be surprised how many people like really in Canada live and die with this concept. As someone who lives in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by dairy farms, I'm not a dairy farmer, but there's a lot around me. The idea is we're going to have a quota system to manage the production of dairy and then by extension, poultry, eggs. And this will help to maintain good market prices so that we can maintain family farms and good production standards and whatnot. When this started, there was something like 145,000 dairy producers, family dairies in Canada. Today, we're down to 9,000. So the idea that and this is my opinion, but I look at it is if we want to keep family dairy farms going, I'm not sure that supply management has accomplished it because you have a quota system, you have to pay per cow to be able to milk. It's ungodly expensive. And today, most of our dairies are being bought out by Europeans. So
among
what it
others.
does is create a quota system. It's a barrier to entry. I think that the details are much more nuanced, to be honest. There is access to American dairy. This is a big sticking point for the U.S. And just to distill it down, what's going to happen is, are we going to open up our supply management to the U.S. in a bigger way or not? And if we don't, then I believe that August 1st will come and you'll see the U.S. apply 35% tariff on non-CUSMA exempt products. Okay. And as well, they're going to exempt potash and oil, energy, okay, and they'll have a reduced tariff on it. So the basket of goods will be smaller than an across the board. But that's what, and that's going to test the resolve of this new government. And I think that Canadians as a whole, we're going to have a moment where we've always thought that these quota systems and Canadian dairy in particular, it's a part of our identity, right? Canadian dairy. And I think we're gonna answer that question. Is it a part of our identity going forward? I don't know the answer, but I know that it's a hot button topic here. It's you're going to balance your auto industry against dairy, against energy, against so many other things. We will get through it, and in the end, I think we're gonna have to look forward and develop more projects here. But I still believe there's a lot more in common and a lot more to do together once we get past this. I'm an eternal optimist, right?
And God bless you for that. I have to say, though, that this experience has driven home the idea for me. The default position of a lot of people is just big time cynicism. And so, or at least skepticism. And needless to say, confusion. And we keep seeing it month after month with the Fastener Distributor Index reports that we get in. We watch those surveys come in. Next one will be pretty soon. Let me set this up a little bit closer, too, because we're recording during the week of July 28th. And what's happening right now is there's an August 1st deadline, and this is one of these deadlines that they just set and everybody then uses it as a big benchmark. It's a dramatic showdown possibly, but as of July 10th, the 35% quote unquote reciprocal tariffs that the U.S. slapped on you guys was then met with some other tariffs. And so now the negotiating is set to, I guess, reach a point of agreement on August 1st, if they can do that. And that's what you were referring to a minute ago.
Yeah. And I look, I think you're right. It is a lot of confusion. And I guess there's 2 points I'll make. One on the August 1st deadline, and one about these deals. So just over the weekend, right, prior to us speaking today, the EU has a deal, but the deal's not signed yet. There's details within it, and I think that if what the EU has, if it comes to fruition, the idea, one of the things that they're trying to hammer out is a clause that would say, and let's be honest, for fastener people, what we care about more so than the country of origin tariffs is the steel tariff. Okay, steel and aluminum derivatives. So if there's a way to say there's a quota established on historical levels with treated countries, Europe, Canada, whatnot, here, you can bring in so many millions or however many millions and millions of tons of steel based on historical use. That'll come in at 0% tariff, and then we're going to have a graduated scale of tariffs of you go over and it's however many percentage that you want to charge. I think that's something that would provide some stability and confidence to the market, because then you can kind of plan around it. And it's really the devil's in the details, right? So I'm fairly harsh right now on the government we've had the last 10 years. Right now, I would say, trying to take your time. And if you can get those details worked out ahead of time, maybe it's going to be the right path forward. What's the silver lining in all of this? Yeah, there's confusion. Yeah, there's stress, frustration, cynicism. Let me be the first to say I am frustrated by the tariffs. I don't understand how they're always, how we've come to apply them in this way. I find that, we don't have enough production domestically. We are a company that's trying to do more domestic in the US, but, there's the reality of how much steel can be produced and parts to be made. Customers still need to build. So let me be the first to say I'm frustrated by tariffs, but I think the silver lining, and I do think there's a way forward. And the silver lining in all of this is, if you had told me in January we'd be here now, I'd say we're hard pressed. How do we go forward? But what's happened is since then, I'm always in the US. We go to these trade shows, right? We saw each other in Nashville. People are still positive. Business is still happening. Good companies are still finding a way forward. And when you go home at the end of the day, your family is still there. The things you value are still there. The relationships you value are still there. So those things don't change. And if you talk to guys who have been in business for 50 years, they say, I've been through this. I've been through that. I've been through this terrible thing that we never thought we'd get through. And here we are on the other side. And I absolutely still believe that'll be the case here. And it's going to be good companies, solid companies run by good people, passionate people with a vision are going to find solutions, and we're going to come out the other side. This is just, one of those things that we'll look back and we'll go, yeah, we got some gray hairs, whatnot, but we'll be sitting down having a bourbon, Kentucky bourbon one day, and it'll be water under the bridge.
Yeah, I'll take an Isla malt, please. Lagavulin, preferably.
The 16, though, because they came out, I think, with they were low on the 16, which was the standard release, and I think now they have an 8, but I won't drink the 8.
No,
it have
come
to
on.
be the 16.
So then how did Jay Lanfranco approach pricing? I know you did a lot of preloading south of the border to cut all this off, and how's that strategy worked, and then how'd you handle pricing?
So the strategy worked out really well to the end of June. I think I had said we had kind of a 6-month runway, or we were planning till the end of the June last time. So we hit that. We did front load a lot of inventory where we could get U.S. material. We did. And so, this is where I do see silver linings. We have customers who still need parts, customers who reacted well to that. So revenues were strong. But for sure, as this has continued, what we saw as customers, as this continued longer, became more worried. So they started to take on more inventory, which depleted us sooner than we anticipated. So you've had to replenish inventory, and you've had to replenish with it now being affected by tariffs. And so initially at the end of June, we had to revise our tariff surcharge. I think, like a lot of companies, we're not passing on the full tariffs to customers. Our strategy has been to find a way to share it where we can and help them out a little bit. It's been received, really well. And then as this has continued now, eventually all customers have experienced tariff surcharge. And so it's now becoming a more accepted reality.
Less pushback?
Less pushback. I think the big challenge for manufacturers now is that as these deadlines keep getting announced and pushed, people are unsure of what will the landscape be. And so we're starting to see, more, just like everyone, we've had an increase in spot buys. So a lot of spot buys. Okay, I don't know what's going to happen. Okay, I finally need parts. I'll take them. But the idea of these, pre-booked orders, blanket orders, 18 months out or whatnot, that's taking a hit, which again, then it makes it tougher in terms of committing to material. We're just loading up on material. I kind of look at it in the sense of our company's been in business for 50 years. Even if tariffs last 8 months, a year, and when I say tariffs lasting, I'm talking about at these increased levels, right? Where we've got to pay them because we haven't found a way to either onshore, all of the products or the products we need to. Other things that we're looking at that we don't have answers on because these trade agreements are not hammered out is, okay, what if we were to get U.S. steel? Right? We've got a big factory in Europe. What if we get U.S. steel? Well, are the Europeans going to tariff this U.S. steel coming in? If they do, we're not helping anybody. But so as these things shake out and the dust settles, let's say it takes us 18 months for the dust to settle. 18 months in a 50-year company history it's a blip. And so, we continue to answer your question, how are we handling the tariffs and pricing? We're being really transparent with customers. We're communicating, weekly to them. And we're sharing in the pain with them. So revenue has been strong for us. We expect it'll be a solid year in terms of revenue. But the bottom line for sure is going to take a hit because tariffs are biting into that. But I think if you stick with your customers, and we all do it in different ways, right? So you can share in some tariff pain with your customers if need be. Or sometimes, you get a customer and you have a machine that breaks or the mill's late on a delivery. What do? Oh, we're running an extra shift. We're going to pay a cut-in fee at heat treat. We're going to air freight something in, right? And that costs you money, but you do it to maintain and support your customers. So it's taking on a different, I don't know how to say it in English, a different shape. Sometimes I think in French, everybody.
How would you say it in French?
It's taking on a different form. Je peux dire en français, mais j'ai trouvé le mot en anglais. Alors, we'll stick with English.
Wow.
But it's taking on a different form. But at the end of the day, it's how do you support customers and how do you work with them in a transparent, honest way? And again, I think if the companies who are doing this, we're finding a way through. And we are going to come out on the other side. And most importantly, our customers will come out on the other side. And I just take the emotion out of it. At the end of the day, Trump's going to represent the U.S., Carney's got to represent Canada, Ursula has to represent the EU, right? But take those people aside. If I come down and see you at your homestead, I'm just as happy to shake your hand and have a whiskey with you, just as I would anybody else. Like, we're all trying to take care of our families and go to work every day and hopefully take care of our communities. And I still believe in that. I still believe that that's the circumstances that we're presented with. And it's up to us to kind of hold the line and not kind of devolve into always being cynical and pointing the finger and getting angry. We can't change what these guys are doing at the top right now. So I guess you just keep grinding away, right? Keep your legs moving, keep your head up, keep skating.
That's what you do. Okay, well, so anyone who knows you knows you're always the magnanimous voice out there, and that's continuing. So then with the average Canadian in the street who is participating in these booze protests, is that still going on, or did they go back to their regularly scheduled?
I think a lot of the air came out of that balloon, and I think now people who are very excited to say elbows up and we're going to do this and we're going to do that are people that are far away from the front line. And again, I'm someone who's not happy with tariffs and kind of, I guess, the overall tone, but that's a negotiation happening at a much higher level. The average Canadian will start to realize, I think, and eventually too, this will affect Americans too, right? People on the ground will feel this. They're negotiating at a high level, but at the end of the day, we've got to find a way to work together, and we've got layoffs happening. It's hurting people, and I think you can be a proud Canadian, and I think you can be opposed to what's happening, but I think we have to be very careful about getting too excited about getting into a prolonged fight and argument, because like, nobody wins. And to get excited about this, while you're getting excited and thinking you're going to show somebody something, there's maybe somebody who's lost their job, there's somebody suffering, there's real people experiencing real hurt right now. And I think that's what gets lost. I think people are starting to realize that. I think the other thing that people are starting to realize is we may be our own worst enemy in this country, because we've got tons of projects to do. And up until now, we can't get out of our own way, right? And so
Well, what's an example of that? What are you speaking of?
We've got tons of, we've got energy projects that we can realize for both natural gas, for oil. We can also look at energy corridors. You talk about housing. Housing is a big driver of the Canadian economy, just like the US. So we have a housing crisis. It's 2.5 years to get permitted to start building homes in Canada. So these are all things that we could fast track home building in this country. We could, for instance, with the EU, right? One of the cornerstones of this overall agreement, or the broad strokes, is Europe says they will buy 700 billion in energy from the US. That'll be in the form, a lot of it will be natural gas, of course. 2 years ago, Canada proudly said there was no business case for natural gas, and we have the fourth largest reserve.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah. Well, and we could go on with a litany of
yeah,
these
so
types of
there's things we can do.
Right, right. But the thing is, this is why the widespread cynicism is out there now, because and we have it over here too, okay? And all over Europe, people don't understand why the obvious things that should be done, or the things that should stop happening, aren't taken care of. And there's no really good reason for it. And so that's the world we live in these days. Well, listen, we could go on with that. We wanted to get an update from you. You gave it to us.
You just poked me there, and you got me all excited, because we do quite a bit with Canadian energy, and we'd love to see more.
Yeah.
And we need it. The world needs it. But again, we're going to find a way, and I absolutely believe that. And when it happens, listen, I will be the first one to. I'll be so happy when Kentucky bourbon is back on the shelf up here.
Well, good thing you make frequent trips down here. And
Absolutely.
one of them is going to be, I know, to the Vegas show in September. Are you coming down to Chicago in August?
I won't make it for the same reason as the Highland Games, unfortunately. But we're going to have, I believe, in terms of news for us, I forgot to mention, but we're real happy. We got Rick Rudolph and Associates. They're starting to rep us. I think they'll be at that show.
Nice.
And so, yeah, we're happy to be working with Rick and his team, and his son Morgan there.
Is Lisa coming down?
I think we've got her double, triple booked. We have a new general manager who started 3 weeks ago, and this guy is just realizing how much we move and travel. And he's, you guys will see him. He'll be at Vegas. It'll be his first show with us, and he's just realizing that we're constantly in motion, right? We don't stop. So, lots of stuff going on here, and there's lots of locknuts moving and specialty products, and the rest of it is, you know what? I go home every day. My chickens are waiting for me, and there's cold beer in the fridge, and there's something to eat. So I'm a happy guy.
Oh, I love that. Now, that's another thing. I didn't realize you're a chicken guy. What are you running these days?
I've got some. What are they? They're like. I forget. I have an Azure. I've got a mix. I got an Azure because they wanted some blue eggs. I've got an Orpington.
Orpington's right.
Right, a big one. And then I got some, I don't know if they're called Sussex. They're like gray, speckled kind of hens. It's an English breed. So I've got a couple of them. And then I've got a Noirins, which is really nicely colored. So we got like a mixed flock.
You're running a petting zoo over there.
Yeah, I've got a mobile coop, right? I move it around every couple of days. And the great joy is getting up in the morning and going for a cold dip in the pool. And then the chickens are out with me, and we're having coffee, and we're talking, and, solving the world's problems. And then get them rounded up in the coop, and then head off to the office, and come home at the end of the day, and throw some hammers and some cavers, and then hang out with the chickens again.
It's a beautiful thing.
It sure is. And then a little bit of fishing, but we'll talk about fishing next time. We've got a lot to talk about there, but there's only so much time in a day.
We always do. All right, Jason, you're with Jay Lanfranco. Everybody knows that. Thanks again for being here. See you in Vegas.
All right. I'll see you there, my friend. Take care, everybody.
Fully Threaded Radio is a production of Fasteners Clearinghouse.